Hello, good morning. Good morning, Ryan, Stormtrooper, Dylan, Sadie. Good morning. Welcome. I am John Beckman, Professor John Beckman, Dr. John Beckman, U.S. Senate GOP primary candidate in the state of Alabama. Vote for me, March 3rd. So today we are going to talk about a thought experiment on Greenland. I'm going to propose a thought experiment, and I'm going to be curious to hear what you think would happen if we did such a thought experiment. But first, it's very early, and we need our coffee. Get your coffee. My wife's cappuccino. Get it in a cup. Let's do a citation to the simultaneous libation of Scott Adams. Dink. All right. Okay, so let me just set the stage for this thought experiment. Okay, the thought experiment on Greenland. So there's this asylum concept where if you were born into a state of war, or if you're born into a state where you are in danger, you can go to a different government and quote unquote seek asylum, seek safety, seek a safe place to live. Okay, so apparently asylum, which we sympathize with, asylum gives people carte blanche, gives people basically unlimited freedom to go wherever they want and basically apply for citizenship. Okay? So let me just also pitch more of this context. In Baltimore, the murder rate of Baltimore is higher than El Salvador's. The murder rate of Baltimore is higher than Guatemala's. Okay? So in Baltimore, the murder rates, it's actually worse living in Baltimore than it is in El Salvador or Guatemala, where everybody says that all the people coming up are seeking asylum because they're from Guatemala or El Salvador, as if that's it. That's all you need. You just need to be from El Salvador or Guatemala and you get asylum. Apparently, that's what they're saying, okay? But Baltimore has a worse murder rate. So it's actually more dangerous to be in Baltimore. Chicago, probably the same. Okay? So now keep this in mind that we have American cities where it's very dangerous to live. So now keep that in your mind that in theory, those people who live in Baltimore or Chicago should be able to seek asylum to live wherever they want to live. Okay? Now let me put the other context of this. Governor Inslee in the last debate and Beto O'Rourke both said that our planet is dying. Okay? They both said that it's already too late. It's already too late. It's already to the point where Crying Yang said literally, run to the hills. You need to leave for high ground because the planet is dying. Mother Earth is infested with humans and CO2 and Gaia is dying. Okay? So now imagine if the planet is dying from global warming, okay, supposedly, and all of the ice is going to melt, where do you want to be? Okay, when that happens? You want to be in Greenland, okay? Greenland is a famous global warming criticism example where people will say in the medieval warming period, where it was actually warmer than it is today, the Vikings who settled Greenland grew barley there, okay? So Greenland was once this beautiful place where you could farm, okay? Now it's frozen ice. Now put these two and two together. We have politicians who are telling us that the planet is dying, okay? And these people, a lot of these people live in cities where the murder rate is higher than countries that are actually literally sending people who are seeking asylum, okay? So put these two and two together. Now let me propose a thought experiment. What would happen if a significant proportion of the population of Baltimore or Chicago who are basically have to live amidst this crazy high murder rate, what would happen if they got together with a bunch of global warming people, okay, and they basically said, we're going to protest this murder rate and we're going to protest global warming and we're just going to move to Greenland. We're just going to go there. What would happen? What would happen if they just flew there? So instead of buying Greenland, instead of buying it, let's just illegally immigrate there. Let's just go there and start living and set up shop. What would happen? Nothing would happen. Greenland doesn't have an army. Greenland is basically a country the size of half of Canada with 58,000 people living there, okay? Those 58,000 people are not going to do anything, okay? Denmark also owns, theoretically, quote unquote, owns Greenland, okay? Denmark is not going to go to war for Greenland, okay? So what would literally happen is nothing. If a bunch of people were just literally like, we're going to seek asylum from global warming in Greenland, we're going to seek asylum from the murder rate of Baltimore and go live in Greenland, nothing would happen, okay? Maybe the United Nations would get together and they would be like, what would they say? What would they say? Like, this is an invasion? And you'd be like, these people are seeking asylum from the global warming, which you guys endorse. So, like, there's nothing they would be able to do. So why even buy Greenland? Why buy it? Just send some people there. Just send people who believe in global warming. Just say, look, you can have asylum in Greenland. Just go there. Just straight up go there. Nothing would happen. Okay. Let me stretch this thought experiment a little further. Let's take a sip. Cheers. Let me stretch this thought experiment even further. Okay. Mexico, northern Mexico. Northern Mexico, the Mexican government does not actually run the governments in northern Mexico, okay? The government of northern Mexico is the drug cartels. The Mexican government does not have territorial control of northern Mexico, okay? It's run by the drug cartels. So first of all, the Mexican government does not even own northern Mexico in terms of like what they have power over. So what would happen? What would happen if global warming asylum seekers just started, or Baltimore asylum seekers started going south of the border? What would happen? What would happen if we just started like walking into Mexico and living in Mexico? I'm curious, like what would happen? What would the response be? So right now, the way that it's set up is asylum seekers from South America can just walk into our country and live here, okay? And that's okay, apparently, okay? So what would happen if we did the opposite? What would happen if we literally just said, it's not acceptable to us that our neighbors are drug cartel, like, companies, they're drug cartel gangsters, so we're just gonna start, like, living in their territory. Like, what would happen? What would they do? I have no idea. I'm not saying we should do this, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do this. I'm just saying, like, this is a thought experiment. What would happen if we just went in there and started living in there? And this goes back to the Texas-American War. So when Texas had the Texas Revolution to win independence from Mexico, the Mexican government sent the military up, all right? This is like the Alamo, and then attacked the Texan settlers. And then the Texans won the war, but while winning the war, what they did is they went all the way down into Mexico, and they conquered the entire, basically Mexico, all the way down to Mexico City. And then once Sam Houston had conquered Mexico City, he basically said, well, we're not colonizers, so we're going to go back up to Texas. All we wanted was to be left alone, is essentially what, like, Sam Houston said. But in an alternate universe, like, how would the world be different if Sam Houston was literally just like, well, we're actually just going to make Mexico like the rest of Texas. We're not going to leave. We're just going to keep it. Like, how would the world be different? Would Mexico then be run by drug cartels if Sam Houston had not left? I doubt it. Okay, so was it a mistake for Sam Houston to come home? I don't know. I'm just talking about that. Okay. Okay, now I'll finish with a final really funny story. Let's do one last sip. I've been wanting to tell this story for a while, and I can tell it kind of now because it sort of kind of associates with discovery and exploration and discovering and sort of not conquering, but like acquiring new territory, new land. So have you heard the story of the Essex? The Essex was this is a true story. This is written about in Moby Dick, but it's a true story. Okay, so the Essex was a whaling ship from Nantucket. So in maybe 100, 200 years ago, whaling used to be huge. Okay, and the northeast coast of America used to be massive on whaling. Okay, and the Essex was a whaling ship. And the Essex went out, okay, to hunt whales. And what you do when you hunt whales is you basically have a big ship which has a bunch of little ships. And then once you spot a whale, they used to lower people down into these boats Could you imagine this? Like they would lower them down into these little rowboats, and then there would be rowers, and they would row after the whales. So you're hunting a creature the size of a school bus in the ocean, okay? And this was a super dangerous job because often, right, like the whales would capsize the ships and you'd all drown, okay? So they would row out after the whales, and then there'd be a harpooner, okay? And basically what happened was, this was the story that catalyzed the premise behind Moby Dick, was the whale that they were chasing, the sperm whale. Instead of running away from the little whaleboats, the whale decided it was going to attack the giant ship, their mothership, okay? So the whale turned around and it swam head on. This is what sperm whales do, they ram stuff. It swam head on at the whale ship and rammed the whale ship and sunk the big mother whale ship, okay? So this big whale ship sunk, and all these harpooners, the hunters, were left in these little tiny boats, okay, in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, okay? So they're stranded there. They're dying. And essentially what they had to do is, there were about 17 people, okay? And then it got to the point where they were starving to death, okay? So they cast lots, and they started murdering each other to cannibalize each other. I guess sort of freely volunteering to be murdered, but not volunteering in the sense that they would draw lots, so it'd be random. And whoever drew the black spot got murdered and then eaten, okay? So they're sitting on the ocean, and after they've eaten about 8 people, there's about 7 people left, and they finally wash ashore of an uninhabited island called the Pitcairn Islands, okay? And now, the people who live in Pitcairn Islands are all descendants from those original whalers whose whale ship was destroyed, the Essex was destroyed by that giant sperm whale. So all the people who live in the Pitcairn Islands, which was an uninhabited island, are now descendants from them. So this is just a funny story. I just wanted to tell the story. It's a funny story of how people, if you just show up somewhere, if you just show up there randomly, like, it becomes yours. And there's like laws for this, right? In the US, isn't there a law that says, like, if you've been living on a spot for like 10 years and nobody bothers you, like, you own it. There's actually a law that says that. If you just show up somewhere, you own it. So, like, why even buy Greenland? Let's relate this back. The Pitcairn Islanders, all they had to do was just wash ashore and then they owned it. So why even buy Greenland? Let's just show up there. Just say you're protesting global warming, say you're seeking an asylum from global warming, or you're seeking asylum from the murder rate in Baltimore, and then just show up there and start living there. What are they going to do? Nothing. And maybe we should be doing the same thing with like northern Mexico. Okay? I'll end it there. Cheers. Any questions? Thought experiments today. This is not real policy proposals, but who knows? Like, what would happen? I don't know. And